When the cameras stopped rolling, most people assumed the story was over. The last viral video had drawn millions of views, stirring up sympathy, outrage, and curiosity, and then, just as quickly as it exploded, everything went quiet. But for the Whittakers, silence doesn't mean peace. It means confusion, rumors, and unanswered questions echoing louder than ever. Months have passed since the world last saw Betty sitting on her porch, waving politely at Mark Lyda's camera, or Timmy walking the yard with his familiar, cautious steps. The hills around Odd, West Virginia, have gone back to their quiet rhythm, the hum of insects, the crunch of gravel under boots, the distant barking of a neighbor's dog. Except now, when you walk up that dirt road, something feels different. The laughter is gone. The porch is empty. The windows are dark. People are asking, what happened to the Whittakers? When the final video in Mark Lyda's series went viral, it painted a bittersweet picture. Fans saw the family's resilience, their closeness, their quirks, and their struggles. They saw poverty and hardship, yes, but also love, an unspoken bond between relatives who had endured decades of ridicule and misunderstanding. For a while, the attention seemed to help. Donations poured in. Viewers from around the world sent money, supplies, and letters. Volunteers arrived wanting to make a difference. Then the arguments began. Creators clashed over who had the real connection to the Whittakers. GoFundMe pages multiplied, each claiming to represent the family. People who had never set foot in Odd spoke with certainty about Betty's needs, Timmy's care, and what should happen next. It wasn't long before the online goodwill turned into chaos. Patrick, one of the earliest YouTubers to visit the family after Mark, had been documenting life in Odd with what seemed like genuine affection. He filmed Betty laughing, Timmy cleaning, and the family receiving small gifts and donations. His videos built a large following, but with fame came scrutiny. People began asking hard questions. Where was the money going? Why wasn't the house being fixed? Who actually had control of the donations? Patrick insisted everything was above board, but doubts grew louder. He claimed transparency, posting screenshots and updates, yet viewers remained skeptical. Then came Eric, another content creator who positioned himself as the protector of the Whittakers. He accused Patrick of exploiting the family, alleging that money meant for them had been mishandled. Patrick fired back, claiming Eric was twisting the truth for his own gain. Soon, what had started as a shared mission to help the family turned into a digital feud. Videos, accusations, and long comment threads followed. Each creator claimed to be on the Whittakers' side. Each blamed the other for the fallout. And the Whittakers? They were caught in the middle, confused, exhausted, and powerless. Locals in Odd began noticing fewer visits from outsiders. The once busy road leading to the family's property grew quiet again. Betty, according to neighbors, became withdrawn. She stopped talking about the donations and started worrying about who to trust. Visitors with cameras made her nervous. She didn't understand what was happening, one resident said quietly. All she knew was people were fighting about her, and she didn't ask for any of it. The situation only worsened when state officials got involved. Concerns about living conditions and safety led to unexpected visits, and, eventually, intervention. The whispers said it started with a report. Someone online, claiming to act in the family's best interest, had called the state. The next thing anyone knew, caseworkers were driving up that road. No one could say for sure who made the call, but the impact was immediate. Within days, parts of the family were separated. Reports surfaced that certain members were placed in care facilities, while others remained on the property. The house, once the heart of their small world, was deemed unsafe. Fans watching from afar were shocked. They flooded social media with questions. Did the state really take them? Where's Betty? Why hasn't anyone updated us? But updates were scarce. Patrick went silent for weeks. Eric claimed he was working behind the scenes. Other creators tried to fill the void, each offering a different version of events. In truth, no one seemed to know exactly what was happening. For the first time since the world discovered them, the Whittakers were invisible again. Meanwhile, rumors began spreading that Betty had been taken out of state. Some said to South Carolina, others claimed to a relative's home. A few posts suggested she had gone willingly for a short trip, while others feared she was being kept away from her family. The lack of confirmation only fueled speculation. Every new Facebook post, every blurry photo, every out-of-context message became evidence. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Supporters accused each other of lying. Former allies became enemies overnight. The irony was painful. People claiming to fight for the Whittakers were the very ones tearing their story apart. In the midst of all this, one voice remained largely unheard, Betty's. For years, she had been the steady figure in every video, warm, soft-spoken, protective of her family. When outsiders misunderstood them, she stood between judgment and her loved ones. But now, her words were missing. A few scattered reports suggested she'd been seen shopping with two women, others claimed she'd gone to visit relatives. No one could verify the truth. Even the locals had stopped talking. Too much trouble, one man said when asked. Every time someone opens their mouth about that family, it ends up online. Best to leave it alone. And maybe he was right. Maybe that silence, frustrating as it is, was the only way to protect what's left. Still, questions linger. Why hasn't Mark returned? Why hasn't anyone from Soft White Underbelly spoken publicly about the aftermath? Did the exposure bring real help, or just temporary attention? Some argue that Mark's videos changed the family's life for the better, that they brought resources and awareness to a forgotten corner of Appalachia. Others say the attention was a curse, turning the Whittakers' home into a spectacle. Both can be true. What's undeniable is that their world was never the same after those videos went viral. The Whittakers became a symbol of poverty, resilience, exploitation, or empathy, depending on who you ask. And symbols don't get to choose what people do with them. Today, if you drive through Odd, you might miss the property altogether. The mailbox is rusted. The yard is quiet. The air carries that peculiar stillness that follows chaos, the kind that feels heavy, not peaceful. Neighbors say you can still hear Timmy sometimes, humming to himself or calling out, his voice faint through the trees. But no one goes up the hill anymore. Not unless they have to. There's talk of repairs that never happened, promises that were broken, and funds that disappeared into confusion. But above all, there's fatigue, a shared sense that the whole thing spiraled out of control. It was supposed to help, one local woman said. But it didn't. It just made everything harder. Maybe she's right. Maybe the internet's attention was never meant to save anyone, just to observe, consume, and move on. But for those who truly cared, walking away isn't easy. There are still people writing letters, still asking questions, still hoping for a genuine update. They don't want another viral video. They just want to know the truth. Is the family safe? Are they together? Did the help ever reach them? The silence has gone on too long, and silence, in the world of the Whittakers, has never been a good sign. Some say Mark will return one day, that he's waiting for the right moment to film again, to tell the story from the inside, after the dust has settled. Others believe that door has closed forever, that too much has been said, too many people have been hurt. For now, all anyone can do is wait. Because in Odd, West Virginia, the truth has a way of hiding, tucked deep in the hills, just out of sight, behind the same walls where a family once lived quietly long before the world came knocking. Comment below. Do you think the Whittaker's story should continue to be told, Or has the world already done enough damage by turning their private lives into public property? Hey everyone, before we get into the next part, I've got something special to share with you. If you're all about making your home smarter, cozier, and just a little bit more you, then you've got to check this out. We've partnered with trekbo.com, a place built for people who love clever solutions and everyday comfort. From wellness and skincare must-haves to smart home gadgets, heated gear, and lifestyle tech, Trekbo is packed with products that make life easier, warmer, and way more fun. I've personally picked some of my favorite finds, things that actually work, look great, and make your day smoother. Whether it's something to simplify your morning routine, help you unwind after a long day, or bring a little innovation into your home, you'll find it there. So before you scroll past, take a quick look at trekbo.com. Trust me, it's full of discoveries waiting to make your everyday better. Alright, now let's get back to it, because after this video, you're definitely going to want to explore what Trekbo has in store for the Whittaker household community. When the world last saw the Whittakers, there was still hope in the air, the kind that comes right before things fall apart. Betty's soft smile, Timmy's shy laughter, the sight of a family enduring despite everything, it all gave viewers something pure to hold on to. But as time passed, that purity got buried beneath lies, pride, and profit. What began as a story about resilience became a lesson in how quickly good intentions can rot once money, fame, and ego get involved. Patrick had once promised transparency. He said the funds raised were helping the Whittakers eat better, heat their home, fix what they could. But when the GoFundMe balances didn't match the repairs seen in videos, questions poured in. And where there are questions, the internet always provides answers, whether they're true or not. Some followers accused Patrick of pocketing donations. Others defended him, claiming he was being sabotaged by Eric Carroll, the self-proclaimed advocate who'd started making videos around the same time. The feud escalated fast. Eric went live on Facebook one night, holding printouts, screenshots, and supposed receipts. He accused Patrick of mismanagement, of lying to donors, and even of isolating the family. His followers flooded Patrick's comment sections with insults, while Patrick fired back in angry videos of his own. Two men, both claiming to love the Whittakers, spent hours tearing each other down for thousands of viewers. Meanwhile, the family they were fighting over didn't even have a working phone. Betty had no idea what people online were saying. She never watched the videos. She couldn't scroll through comment threads filled with strangers arguing about her life. All she knew was that visitors stopped coming as often, and when they did, they came with tension in their voices. Timmy, who'd once smiled easily for the camera, grew anxious when strangers appeared. He started asking, "Where's Mark? Where's Patrick?" as if expecting one of them to walk through the door and make things normal again. But Mark Lyda hadn't returned, and Patrick was too busy defending his name. The first sign that things were about to spiral came from inside the community itself. Locals began noticing unfamiliar vehicles parked near the Whittaker property. Some claimed they were social workers, others said they were law enforcement. No one knew who called. But within weeks, rumors spread that the state was investigating, not because of the family's living conditions alone, but because of the sudden attention and money tied to them. When government agencies show up in a small town, word travels fast. One neighbor later said, "You could tell something bad was coming. Too many people were talking, too many outsiders poking around." And then one morning, the Whittakers were gone. For days, nobody knew where they'd been taken. The details were vague, for their own safety, to assess care needs, temporary custody. In truth, it wasn't one decision, but a pile of them. Years of neglect from local agencies collided with a few months of viral fame, and the result was chaos. Suddenly, people who had ignored the family for decades were now trying to fix them overnight. But the system wasn't built for compassion, It was built for compliance. The house was condemned. The family members were split. Betty, people said, was devastated. She begged to see them but was told she'd have to wait until assessments were complete. The same state that had ignored her for years now decided what her family needed. And just like that, the Whittakers, who had survived everything from ridicule to poverty, were dismantled by bureaucracy. Online, though, the storm raged on. Creators jumped to fill the void left by silence. Some posted breaking updates based on hearsay. Others created tribute videos or speculation threads. One channel even uploaded a live stream outside the family's old home, calling it The Truth About the Whittakers' Removal. It got 500,000 views. Each new upload added to the confusion. Some said Betty had fled the state. Others claimed she'd been taken by 2 women to South Carolina. The truth, that she'd likely gone with assistance for temporary housing, got lost in the noise. Eric's followers claimed victory. We told you something bad was happening. Patrick's supporters fought back. This is what happens when people interfere. Meanwhile, the only people not speaking were the ones who mattered most, Betty and her family. Months later, Patrick reappeared online. His face looked thinner, his voice tired. They ruined everything, he said in one video. All I ever wanted was to help. He blamed Eric for calling the state. He blamed the haters for twisting the story. He said the family had been taken because outsiders created chaos. He might have been right, but he also never admitted that he played a role in turning their lives into entertainment. Eric, on the other hand, doubled down. He uploaded long videos explaining that justice was served and that the family was better off under supervision. It's sad, he said, but it had to happen. When viewers asked for proof, he offered vague statements and moral justifications. It wasn't about evidence anymore. It was about who could sound more righteous. Behind the scenes, something darker was unfolding. Whispers of missing funds circulated among donors. Screenshots of PayPal transactions and private messages leaked online. Accusations turned into investigations, not official ones, but internet trials, where everyone's guilty until proven innocent. Supporters who once raised money for the Whittakers began deleting posts. Some channels vanished overnight. Others rebranded, pretending they'd never been involved. And in Odd, West Virginia, the old house sat quiet, its windows boarded, its door chained. The laughter and chatter that once filled it were replaced by wind moving through the cracks in the siding. Locals say Betty still visits sometimes. That she sits on a nearby bench, looking at what's left of her home, and prays out loud. She talks about her boys, how they used to help her bring in wood, how Timmy loved to sing when no one was watching. She's not angry, one woman said. She's just heartbroken. Betty doesn't blame the internet. She doesn't understand it well enough to. All she knows is that strangers came, cameras came, and then the people she loved were taken away. She still believes someone will bring them back. What happened to the money? That's the question that keeps resurfacing, and the one that may never have an answer. Eric claimed that over $100,000 was raised across various platforms. Patrick disputed the number, saying much of it went to travel, supplies, and taxes. Both claimed they acted in good faith, but neither could produce clear accounting. To this day, supporters on Reddit and Facebook continue to dig, analyzing timestamps, donation records, and YouTube payouts. Theories abound, some suggesting a coordinated scam, others insisting on miscommunication. The truth is likely somewhere in between, a mess of ego, confusion, and poor oversight rather than outright fraud. Still, for a family living in poverty, lost money means more than bad bookkeeping. It means warmth lost, food missed, and hope betrayed. As the outrage cooled, another reality set in, one that no video could ever fix. The Whittakers didn't just lose their home. They lost their sense of safety. Once the cameras leave, there's no script to follow. There's no audience cheering for redemption. Just the long, cold quiet of being forgotten again. And for all the claims of wanting to help, the internet did what it always does. It consumed and moved on. Those who once cried for the Whittakers' well-being now scroll past updates about them, pausing only to say, "Wow, that's sad," before swiping to the next viral clip. The cycle continues. But not everyone forgot. A few dedicated locals, including a retired pastor and a nurse, still visit the area. They check on Betty when they can, bring small things, groceries, blankets, a bit of company. They don't film it. They don't post it. One of them said, "You can't undo what's been done. But you can stop making it worse." Maybe that's what compassion really looks like. Not grand gestures or viral moments, but quiet consistency. The kind the internet can't monetize. Now, nearly a year after the last viral video, the story feels unfinished. Mark Lyda has remained silent, though whispers say he's considered returning for a follow-up. If he does, it won't be the triumphant story people hope for. It will be raw, broken, and real. Because the truth is, the Whittakers didn't need saving, they needed stability. And no camera, no donation, no influencer feud could ever provide that. The road to their old home remains overgrown now. The mailbox still reads Whittaker in faded black paint. A few flowers grow near the porch, planted by someone who still believes they'll come home one day. Maybe Betty. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe someone who just couldn't let go. Either way, it's proof that even after everything, the fame, the fights, the fallouts, the Whittakers still mean something to people. Not as a spectacle. Not as a tragedy. But as a reminder that behind every viral video is a human story, and once the lights fade, that story keeps going whether we're watching or not. Comment below. Do you believe the exposure helped or hurt the Whittakers in the long run? And can the damage done by helping hands ever truly be undone? For months, silence blanketed Odd like fog rolling through the hills. The house at the end of the dirt road, once the center of so much attention, now sat quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with questions nobody wants to ask. But silence doesn't mean nothing's happening. It just means no one's talking. Until recently, a voice finally broke through the quiet, not Mark's, not Patrick's, not Eric's, but one from inside the Whittaker circle. A neighbor, tired of the endless speculation, decided to speak out. "They're not gone," she said softly. "They're scattered." That one word, scattered, carried the weight of everything that had gone wrong. She explained that some members of the family were staying with relatives, others placed in state care. Betty, she said, had been seen twice in the last few months, thinner, quieter, and walking with a limp she didn't have before. She was being looked after by church people, though no one seemed to know exactly who they were. "She don't talk much about what happened," the neighbor added. "But if you mention cameras, she shuts down. Just shakes her head and says, 'No more. No more.'" 2 words that echoed louder than any documentary ever could. It was a strange kind of irony. The family who'd once been voiceless, whose silence made them a mystery, had found their voice only to lose it again. This time, not because of ignorance or isolation, but because of betrayal. The same outsiders who promised to tell their story had twisted it into something unrecognizable. Behind the scenes, there was still noise, lawsuits threatened, accusations exchanged, and a few stubborn supporters still demanding answers. Eric Carroll continued to post occasionally, defending his role in the intervention. He said he was helping the state ensure safety and accountability. He denied any involvement in splitting the family apart, instead pointing fingers at Patrick and online manipulators. Patrick, for his part, resurfaced with teary eyes and shaky hands, claiming he'd been silenced by YouTube strikes and personal threats. He hinted at bigger players controlling the narrative, though he never named names. Both men, once hailed as heroes, had become caricatures of themselves, talking more about each other than about the people they claimed to help. Meanwhile, in Odd, the family whose name they used for views and donations was learning how to survive without the noise. A local pastor, Reverend Morris, spoke quietly during a community gathering. "You know, people say the Whittakers were strange," he said, voice low but steady. "But what's strange to me is how the world could claim to love them and still destroy them in the same breath." Heads nodded in the small crowd. These were people who had known the family before the cameras came, before soft white underbelly turned them into global icons of poverty and endurance. "They were simple folks," one woman said. "They didn't bother nobody. Lived quiet. We used to bring 'em food sometimes, check in. But after those videos, Lord, it was like a circus. People driving by just to stare. It wasn't right." She paused, tears welling. "They didn't ask for none of this." In one of the last known videos filmed before the fallout, Betty looked into the camera and said softly, "We're all right." At the time, it sounded like reassurance. Now, it sounds like prophecy, a woman trying to convince herself that the storm outside her door wouldn't swallow her family whole. But it did. The state's intervention, whether justified or not, left deep scars. The home condemned, the family divided, their privacy permanently shattered. Timmy, reportedly placed in supervised care, struggles to understand where everyone went. Staff members have described him as quiet and withdrawn, though occasionally he'll hum the same tune he used to when visitors came to the porch. It's a small, haunting melody, one that used to mean joy. Now it's just memory. People online are starting to ask different questions now, not about donations or feuds, but about humanity. "How far is too far?" one commenter wrote. "When does curiosity become cruelty?" Because what happened to the Whittakers isn't just a story about one family. It's a mirror, reflecting how easily empathy can turn into exploitation when filtered through a lens. The internet's fascination with real lives has blurred the line between documentary and spectacle. Mark Lyda, to his credit, always maintained a certain dignity in how he filmed. He let silence speak. He gave them space. But those who followed in his footsteps didn't understand restraint. For them, the Whittakers weren't people, they were content. Even now, the algorithms haven't forgotten. Type Whittakers into YouTube and you'll find thumbnails of their faces plastered across reaction videos, updates, and exposés. Some are made by people who've never even been to West Virginia. Every click, every ad, every outraged comment keeps the cycle alive, long after the people at the center of it have faded from public view. And the saddest part? Most viewers mean well. They think they're staying informed, that they're fighting for justice. But the truth is, they're feeding the same machine that chewed the family up in the first place. In early fall, a photograph began circulating online, a blurry shot of a woman sitting outside a convenience store in Southern Virginia. She wore a long coat, her hair tucked under a scarf, her eyes cast down. The caption claimed it was Betty. The image spread fast, shared in fan groups and forums. Some insisted it was real. Others called it fake. Nobody knew for sure. The photo's comments section filled with speculation. Is she okay? Someone should go find her. She looks so thin. The post got thousands of likes, and then vanished. Deleted. Whether it was out of compassion or fear of exposure, no one knows. But for a brief moment, the world remembered the woman behind the name. Then the internet moved on again. Those who have tried to contact Betty directly say the family's circle has tightened. They don't trust anyone with a camera, and they've stopped answering messages from outsiders. the small group of locals who helped them now do so quietly, without donation links or social media posts. "We learned our lesson," said one. "You can't fix people's lives with views." Still, not everyone has learned. Every few weeks, another new update video appears on YouTube, recycled clips stitched together with dramatic titles. "The truth about the Whittakers, what they don't want you to know, Betty's disappearance explained." Each one brings another wave of speculation, and another reminder that the story, no matter how tragic, is still profitable. If there's one person who seems to understand what went wrong, it might be Mark Lyda himself. Though he's remained largely silent, a few brief comments in interviews hint at regret. He's acknowledged that the family's fame brought unintended consequences and that the attention got out of control. Some say he's been trying to find a way to help quietly, without cameras. Others believe he's stepping back to avoid further harm. Either way, he hasn't abandoned them, just the spotlight. And maybe that's what real help looks like now, distance, not documentation. There's a strange stillness to Odd these days. The locals say the birds come back earlier in the morning now, as if reclaiming the space that once buzzed with visitors. The dirt road is rutted again, weeds pushing through the cracks. It feels like the land itself is trying to heal. Some nights, though, a car will stop at the bottom of the hill. Someone new, curious, hopeful. A person who's seen the videos and just wants to check on them. They rarely make it to the house. A neighbor usually stops them first. "Turn around," they say gently. "Let him be." And the driver, realizing too late that this isn't a tourist spot or a filming location, turns back down the road, the headlights fading into the fog. This is where the story stands now, fragments of lives pulled apart by exposure, stitched together by rumor, and held in place by the memories of those who refuse to forget. The Whittakers were never just a curiosity. They were a family doing their best to exist in a world that didn't understand them. Now, after all that's happened, they're not asking for sympathy. They're asking for space. Maybe, in a way, that's what they always wanted, and what none of us were willing to give. Because silence, for them, was never emptiness. It was protection. And now, after all the noise, they've taken it back. Comment below. Do you think Mark Lyda should ever return to film the Whittakers again? Or would doing so only reopen wounds that finally began to heal? Time has a strange way of softening even the loudest chaos. A year ago, the Whittaker story was everywhere, dissected, debated, and dragged through every corner of the internet. Now, only echoes remain. The noise has faded, but the consequences haven't. Odd, West Virginia, has gone back to being what it always was, quiet, isolated, and wary of outsiders. Yet beneath that calm lies a grief that doesn't speak out loud. The Whittakers' name still carries weight in these hills, but not for the reasons it once did. Betty's porch sits empty now, the old rocking chair slowly wearing away with the seasons. Locals say she visits less often. Some claim she's staying closer to family, others whisper she's under supervision somewhere nearby. Nobody's certain, and nobody asks too many questions. People learn that curiosity can be cruel. "She used to smile when people came," one neighbor said softly. "Now, when she hears tires on gravel, she shuts the curtains." What happened to the rest of the family depends on who you ask. Some are still in care. Some, perhaps, have found quieter places to live. No one can trace every branch of their story anymore, and maybe that's for the best. The truth is that fame hit them like a storm, and when it passed, it left wreckage behind. Promises made in good faith turned into confusion. Strangers with cameras turned into arguments. The same platforms that claimed to help became stages for blame. Money went missing. Trust evaporated. Lives changed forever. And through it all, the people who were supposed to be protected became the ones paying the highest price. Mark Lyda has spoken little, but those close to him say he carries regret, not for telling the story, but for how others twisted it after. He showed the Whittakers as human beings, flawed, funny, stubborn, enduring. He gave them dignity in a world that didn't understand them. But the internet doesn't deal in dignity. It deals in outrage and spectacle. What began as a compassionate portrait turned into an ecosystem of exploitation. Every new video, every exclusive update, every accusation added another layer of damage. And for all the millions of views, the family saw little real help. Yet even now, hope flickers in small ways. A local church occasionally drops off groceries. A woman named Carol, who lives down the road, brings blankets when winter hits. She doesn't film it or post about it, she just does it. People think help has to be big, she said. But sometimes it's just showing up. In that sense, the Whittakers are still surrounded by love, not the loud, viral kind, but the quiet sort that doesn't need an audience. Timmy, according to one caretaker, still smiles when people are kind. He hums to himself while sorting small items, arranging them carefully in patterns only he understands. Sometimes, when asked about home, he says one word, Betty. It's both a memory and a wish. For the thousands who once followed their story online, there's a growing sense of reckoning. People are beginning to realize that good intentions aren't enough, that raising awareness without accountability can do harm. The Whittakers didn't need to be made into symbols. They needed stability, safety, and respect. They needed help that stayed after the cameras left. Instead, they were given a spotlight that burned too hot, too fast. And when the light faded, they were left in the dark again. This time, with strangers arguing about who had the right to care. So, what's next? No one knows. There are whispers that Mark might return someday, not to film, but to visit quietly. To see what remains. To make peace with a story that grew far beyond anyone's control. If he does, it won't be for content. It will be for closure. Because despite everything, the scandals, the fights, the false saviors, there's still something sacred about the Whittaker story. Something that reminds us of what it means to endure. They never asked for fame. They never asked for pity. All they wanted was to live on their own terms, in their own way. And maybe in the end, that's what they'll get. The hills of Odd are quiet again. The road is rough, the house weathered, but the spirit of that place still lingers. You can almost hear Betty's laughter carried in the wind, or Timmy's soft voice humming through the trees. It's easy to think their story is over, that the world has moved on. But stories like theirs don't end, they settle. They become lessons whispered to those who come after, reminders of how fragile compassion can be when filtered through fame. The Whittakers may have lost more than they gained, but they've taught the world something lasting. That real care doesn't come from cameras. It comes from presence, from patience, from people who listen without asking for anything back. Comment below. Do you think the world has learned from what happened to the Whittakers? Or is this just another story we'll forget until the next family goes viral? Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.